All right, I've got a couple big announcements for you guys. Number one, PFF's player prop tool is now available on the web for all PFF Plus subscribers. And number two, PFF Plus is 40% off right now. If you use the promo code BLACKFRIDAY, you get all of the same data, grades, and analytics that all 32 NFL teams use, all 136 FBS teams use. As well, you get access to our 2026 NFL mock draft simulator, that world-class player prop tool that can help you nail all of your bets, and of course, the best fantasy football tools on the planet as well. Again, 40% off PFF Plus right now when you use the promo code BLACKFRIDAY. We got Utah at Kansas. Again, Black Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN. The storylines to know in this game, Utah trying to stay alive in the Big 12 race and also the at-large race for the college football playoff. They had a thrilling win over Kansas State this past weekend, a 51-47 final score. We had a shootout in that game between Utah and Kansas State. Utah still has a chance to make it to the Big 12 title game, but they also need some help like Ole Miss. Utah needs to win. They need BYU to win. They need Arizona State to also win, and Texas Tech loses. However, if BYU somehow loses to UCF, Utah still has a path in the form of an Arizona State win, a Texas Tech loss, a Cincinnati win, and a Kansas State win. So basically, they definitely need Arizona State to win against Arizona and Texas Tech to be upset by West Virginia this weekend. And then the easier path would be BYU to also beat UCF. But if that does not happen, they can also get in if Cincinnati wins and Kansas State wins. Even if Utah does not make it to next week at the Big 12 title game in Dallas, it still has, I would say right now, an outside chance at making the playoff as an at-large team. But I think that would require some chaos to happen in front of Utah in order for them to make it as an at-large team. So this is a huge game for Utah. Just take care of business against Kansas and then hope for some chaos in front of you as well. Kansas, a lot like Mississippi State, Dalton, Kansas needs to win this game in order to make a bowl game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think when you look at Utah, there's a bunch of teams on this table rooting for a bunch of other underdogs at this table. When you look at the LSU-Oklahoma game, the Auburn-Alabama game, Utah is rooting for a couple teams in front of them here to lose to gain even better positioning going into the final rankings there, or I should say the penultimate rankings before conference title weekend. So we will know by the end of Friday whether or not Utah is alive between their game and that Arizona State game is Friday night as well. But I think when you look at Utah, they got to have a bounce back on defense to really get this win on the road. And Kansas, as always, is dangerous offensively.
Our guy Kay Kirshner in the chatter is saying the West Virginia upset as a part of the parlay. Eye emoji.
Oh,
that's
boy.
a big one. That's upset parlay.
I know it's in the 20s, I think, right? It's at least
you know what, chat? Let's go out with a bang. This is the last No Sunday Show parlay of the year. Let's go out with a bang and make this a absolutely massive one. So, throw in West Virginia over Texas Tech if you want to do
this one this week, I can already tell you it's going to be a big money one. It's going to be I had to take a swing, and there wasn't that many options to pick from.
I love it. You have the Kansas offense in this one. What should we know when Jalen Daniels in that Kansas offense against Utah's heavy man coverage?
I have to think more so than that watching last week's tape with Utah playing Kansas State, giving up almost 500 yards on the ground, that Kansas is going to want to run the football, right? They're 53rd in the nation in rushing grade, but 7th in run blocking grade, a really good, well-taught offensive line that can do a lot of things up front, 37th in explosive run rate. And the big thing that really hurt Utah last week was Kansas State getting to the edges, getting off tackle, especially with Utah, arguably their best defensive player, John Henry Daly, now out for the season with an injury. I would expect Kansas to attack the edges. Here's a stat for you. Kansas this year, when running off tackle, 5.7 yards per carry. That's a top 30 mark in the nation. Utah, 5.8 yards per carry allowed on off-tackle runs. That's the 15th worst in the country. A lot of that obviously from last week, but when you really look at the 3 games where Utah has struggled, right, the losses to Texas Tech and BYU, and then the close win over Kansas State last week, they've given up a lot of rushing yards in those 3 games. They've had problems controlling the pace of the game. They're a team that wants to run and stop the run and force opponents into obvious passing situations. If they can do that in this game, maybe you force Jalen Daniels into mistakes, although you don't have your best pass rusher now in John Henry Daly, so you're relying on Logan Fano and those other guys up front to get the job done. But it starts with the run game. Utah's run defense has got to be better than it's been in their other big games this year. They were lucky to get out of last week alive. They gave up 47 points and almost 500 rushing yards. Daniel Highshaw, LaShawn Williams, even Jalen Daniels himself, if they can come out, if the Jayhawks can come out and run the football, maybe not at the level that Kansas State did last week, but at something near that, you're talking 250, 300 rushing yards like these other teams have been getting, then you're talking about a dangerous path here for Utah that they don't want to go down.
Yeah, it was really unfortunate. John Henry Daly, who has been an outstanding pass rusher, I would say right now the best player on Utah's defense this year, he's now out for the season with a leg injury that he suffered against Kansas State. So hopefully he comes back strong next year. But yeah, it was pretty brutal end to his season and pretty brutal loss for Utah's defense as well. I have the same matchup on the other side of the ball. Utah's dynamic rushing attack against Kansas's run defense. Their run game at Utah is one of the most difficult to stop in all of college football because defenses just don't know who have the ball on any given play. 6 different Utah players have at least 200 rushing yards this year, and Utah leads the Power 4 with 3.2 yards before contact per attempt. Some of that has to do with their really talented offensive line, guys like Spencer Fano and Caleb Lomu. Both of them could be first-round picks at offensive tackle this year, but it also has to do with the defenses just are so confused every single play with who has the football on this Utah offense. Utah also has 6 or more offensive linemen on the field on about 45% of their plays this year. The next closest team is at 10%. So Utah, by far, runs 6 offensive linemen on the field more than any other team in college football. Almost half of Utah's plays this year come with 6 offensive linemen on the field. Over the last 2 wins for Utah, they have run for 699 yards against Baylor and Kansas State combined. So basically 350 rushing yards per game for Utah over the last 2 games. And Kansas, meanwhile, is only 113th in the country with 5.4 yards per carry allowed, and they're 114th in the country in yards before contact per carry allowed with 2 yards before contact per carry allowed this year. Again, Utah, the number 1 team in the country in terms of getting yards before contact per carry. Both of their linebackers, in Bengali Kamara and Trey Lathan, both of them have sub-65 run defense grades this year. And Dalton, you mentioned before how difficult it is for linebackers to play against this Utah run scheme.
You're absolutely right. It's basically a run scheme that breaks all of the rules. You never know where the ball is. Generally, the guards, the offensive linemen are going to take you where you want to go to the football, but Utah has so many influences, there's so many counters and so many quarterback runs that can go the other way that you think that they force linebackers to watch the football, and that slows them down a little bit with all the option football and all the motions and diversions that go into it. So it is as hard as any offense in the country for linebackers to deal with, especially when you talk about now the 2 different quarterbacks who've been getting in on the action. Devin Dampier, the starter, and then Bird Ficklin, one of the most dangerous runners in the country already, even as a redshirt freshman, I believe he is. I mean, it's just been an unbelievable dynamic in Utah's backfield with the number of options they have, the number of schemes they have, and Jason Beck comes up with something different every single week. I'm glad you mentioned Kamara and Lathan, the linebackers. They are going to be in the spotlight, and they've struggled in other games. The Missouri game, the Cincinnati game, the Texas Tech game, teams that are able to run the ball on Kansas, the same way as I just talked about the other way, they really have a lot of success, and you get a lot of points on Kansas in the ground game.
Yeah, like I said, both those guys have sub-65 run defense grades this year. Now you're going against maybe the most difficult run game to contain for linebackers in college football this year. Dalton, ultimately, will Utah keep their playoff hopes alive and also Big 12 championship hopes alive with a win over Kansas, or will Kansas make it to bowl eligibility?
I think they do stay alive, but again, I think they're going to be biting their nails a little bit through the entire game because you got a desperate Kansas team that wants to make a bowl game. They do have a high-flying offense and a really good ground game that can threaten them, and I am worried about the loss of John Henry Daly. He was by far their best pass rusher, having an outstanding year this year, one of the national leaders in pressure. So when you look at that combination of things, I think we could get another shootout in this game, and Utah might have to win it in a similar fashion as they did last week. I have the Utes 42-35. You also have Jalen Daniels, who without that pass rush kind of has that almost Jameis Winston feel where he's going to let it rip no matter what, whether it's good or bad. Now, sometimes that can work against him and he can turn the ball over, but we know Jalen Daniels can make a lot of plays out there, especially in clean pockets when he has time. I'm going to take Utah, but I do think it's going to be dangerous on the road again here.
So actually, I have Utah as well, but like the Ole Miss Mississippi State Egg Bowl, I'm actually taking a little bit of a bigger margin here. I have Utah winning this game 38-24. I don't think Kansas is going to be able to contain this ground game for Utah. I think they're going to run wild just like they've done in the last 2 games, really the entire season. for Utah. And I think Utah's defense will have some success in this game too. And I think Utah at least assures itself that it'll be in the conversation for an at-large spot in the college football playoff. Again, they probably need some chaos to happen in front of them in order to make it as an at-large team. And then also they would need some help in order to make the Big 12 title game, which would come the next day on Saturday. So they'll hopefully Utah is hoping to win this game, and then of course they'll turn their attention to the other games in the Big 12 and hope that they get some help in order to make it to their first ever Big 12 title game. All right.